Power never enters the heart as a storm. It begins as a whisper, gentle and seductive. It tells you that you're chosen, that your ambition is destiny, that greatness is calling your name. You believe it because it feels noble. Purpose dresses itself as power in the beginning. You climb not to dominate, but to do good, or at least that's what you tell yourself. The climb feels righteous. Every step is justified by vision. Every sacrifice sanctified by purpose. You convince yourself that authority is responsibility, not reward. You start to believe that you were made for leadership, for influence, for impact. You quote wisdom about service and humility, but in secret, you love how people listen when you speak. At first, you remember the why. You wake early with conviction. You make decisions carefully, not for profit but for principle. Power seems like a tool, heavy, yes, but manageable. You tell yourself you'll never become like them, the arrogant and the proud. You're different, you're grounded. You'll handle power with grace. But power doesn't corrupt all at once. It erodes quietly. It begins not when you abuse it, but when you start to need it. When silence makes you nervous. When recognition becomes fuel. When leadership stops being service and starts being identity. You tell yourself it's still purpose. But the purpose has already shifted. The applause feels holy. Every success is a sign that you're doing something right. People admire your wisdom, your courage, your results. You start believing the compliments, craving the validation. The crown begins to tighten, but you mistake the pressure for progress. Power is intoxicating because it mimics divine control. You start planning not only outcomes, but people. You adjust your tone to maintain influence. You hide your doubts because leaders are not supposed to tremble. You stop confessing weakness, not because it disappeared, but because weakness doesn't look good under a spotlight. The people who once challenged you start to disappear, not because they've changed, but because you stopped listening. You surround yourself with agreement. The echo of your own voice becomes your counsel. You start confusing silence with respect and fear with loyalty. The higher you climb, the thinner the air becomes. You start mistaking isolation for purity, distance for dignity. You say you're focused, but really, you're alone. Purpose once connected you to people. Power now separates you from them. The work that used to bring meaning now brings performance. Power rarely collapses with noise. It decays in silence. You don't notice the rot when it begins. It hides beneath success, beneath applause, beneath the illusion that everything is fine. But slowly, the heart that once burned for purpose starts cooling into control. You're not leading anymore. You're managing, not serving anymore. You're surviving. You tell yourself that what you're doing still matters, but deep down you feel the shift. The fire is gone, replaced by routine. You start chasing motion, not meaning. You don't ask, "Is this right?" anymore. You ask, "Will they like it?" The crown has moved from your head to your heart, and now it owns you. There's a strange loneliness that comes with power. Not because people leave you, but because they no longer know how to reach you. You've built walls made of admiration. They clap for you, but no one knows you. You've become untouchable, and that untouchability feels like death wearing dignity. You begin to sense it in moments of quiet. The silence that used to refresh you now feels heavy. The peace you once preached now escapes you. You can't rest because rest requires honesty, and honesty threatens the empire you've built around your name. The decisions become harder, not because the stakes are higher, but because the motives are unclear. You used to ask, "What's right?" Now you ask, "What will protect my image?" Purpose once guided your choices. Now power guards your comfort. You start surrounding yourself with mirrors instead of windows. Everyone reflects what you want to see. No one brings light from outside, and soon the reflection begins to distort you. You become a collection of other people's expectations, a hollow king trapped in his own reflection. You still speak about humility, but your words taste rehearsed. You still mention service, but your hands stay clean. You still quote wisdom, but only the kind that makes you sound wise. You've learned to mimic virtue without living it, a performance so polished that even you start to believe it. The weight grows quietly. Every success feels emptier. Every praise feels shorter. You thought power would fill you, but it only stretches the emptiness wider. You start to sense that you've been drinking from a golden cup filled with dust. The crown feels heavier now, not because of pressure from others, but because of the truth pressing from within. You can't ignore the cracks anymore. Every decision echoes back with questions you don't want to answer. You've mastered control, but collapse never begins with a crash. It begins with a sigh, a quiet moment of truth you can no longer silence. It's that instant when success stops feeling satisfying, when applause sounds hollow, when even your own reflection feels like a stranger's face. The crown still gleams, but you no longer see gold, you see weight. One morning you wake up, and the silence doesn't feel powerful anymore. It feels lonely. The throne that once symbolized victory now looks like isolation carved into stone. You built this seat to rule from, but now it rules you. And for the first time, you realize that power without purpose is not authority. It's exile. You begin to see the cracks everywhere. In your relationships, in your peace, in the way people speak around you, careful, cautious, afraid to offend. You used to inspire honesty, but now you inspire hesitation. That's when it hits you. People don't follow you anymore. They just fear losing your approval. The mirror becomes your enemy. You used to look at it to prepare. Now you look at it to remember who you were. The reflection stares back, successful, admired, composed. But behind the eyes, there's a question that burns like truth. Do they love me, or do they need me? You already know the answer. The days grow heavier. Work doesn't energize you, it drains you. You keep producing but not creating. You keep moving but not progressing. The routines that once gave meaning now feel mechanical. It's as if your soul has left the throne room, but your body stayed behind to play the part. Every achievement begins to feel smaller, like echoes in an empty hall. You host celebrations that no longer celebrate anything. You deliver speeches that sound sincere but hollow. You're surrounded by light, but you walk in shadow, because the light isn't yours anymore. It belongs to the crown. You remember the purpose that started all of this. It was pure, it was honest, it was beautiful. You wanted to build something meaningful. But meaning has a fragile life under power. It suffocates when attention becomes currency and humility becomes strategy. The purpose didn't die, you just stopped feeding it. Guilt creeps in, disguised as exhaustion. You tell yourself you just need rest, but rest without repentance is only delay. You avoid silence because it's too honest. You keep working because it's easier than changing. You've learned to outrun the truth, but truth always has longer endurance. You start noticing the people you've lost, not because they left, but because you stopped being someone they could reach. Friends became followers, mentors became admirers, partners became subjects. You realize that every empire built on admiration eventually collapses under its own applause. One evening, you sit in your office surrounded by everything you built. The room glows with gold and success, but feels as empty as the night outside. You reach for the crown on your desk, and for the first time, you feel its hollowness, literally and metaphorically. It's beautiful, but it's dead. You remember the old wisdom. What good is it to gain the world? Morning arrives differently after the fall. The same light that once exposed your emptiness now feels like grace. It doesn't accuse anymore. It awakens. You realize that the crown wasn't the problem. It was the distance between the crown and your heart. Power isn't poison when it serves purpose. It becomes holy again when it bends. You begin to rebuild, not your throne, but your soul. You start listening again. You start asking again. The questions return, but now they're humble ones. Who am I serving? Why does this matter? You learn that wisdom is born not from success, but from surrender. The silence that once felt like punishment now feels sacred. You no longer run from stillness, you rest in it. You begin to see that humility isn't weakness, it's clarity. It's the strength to hold power with open hands, knowing it was never truly yours to keep. You start to notice the beauty in small things again, the laughter of those who have less but live more, the peace in honest work, the freedom in being unseen. You used to crave recognition, now you crave integrity, and strangely, that makes you more powerful than ever. People begin to see the change, though you never announce it. Your words sound different, not heavier, but truer. You don't command anymore. You guide. You don't seek followers. You seek fellowship. You stop standing above people and start walking among them. Power becomes human again. The world still tempts you with its old promises, status, praise, image, but you see through them now. You've tasted their emptiness, and you can't go back. You know that influence without integrity is just noise, and leadership without love is just control in costume. You begin to rebuild relationships, not through authority, but through apology. You tell the truth, that you lost your way, that power blinded you, that you forgot why you started, and in that honesty, you find healing. Because confession breaks the pride that crowns itself, you realize that purpose was never lost. It was buried beneath ambition. You start unearthing it again.